This play is called Our Town, written by Thornton, directed by Valerie, Rives. Now, the name of our town is Grover's Corners, New Hampshire, just across the Massachusetts line, latitude 42 degrees, 40 minutes, longitude 70 degrees, 37 minutes. Now, the first act is a day in our town, and that day is May 7, 1901. Time is just before dawn. I can just see some streaks of light over there in the east behind our mountain. Morning star looks wonderful bright the moment before it has to go, doesn't it? Well, I should tell you how our town lies. Right down here is Main Street. And back over this way, we got the railway station. Railroad tracks run that way. Now, Polish towns across the tracks, and a few Canuck families too. But if you come back over this way, just down the road a ways, there's the Congregational Church. And across the street's the Presbyterian. On this side, you've got the Methodist, Unitarian, and the Baptist Church is down in the hollow by the river. And we have a Catholic church over here across the tracks too. Now, town hall and the post office are combined. Jail's in the basement. You know, William Jennings Bryan once gave a speech from those very steps, yeah? Yep. Now, all along Main Street here, there are storefronts and hitching posts, horse blocks. The first automobile doesn't come along for another 5 years yet. That'll be owned by banker Cartwright. He's our richest citizen. And he lives in the big white house up on the hill. We also have a grocery store and Mr. Morgan's drugstore. And most everybody in town manages to stop into those two stores at least once a day. Back over here on this side, elementary school's off that way. We call it the public school. And just beyond that's the high school. 8:45 in the mornings, noontime, and 3 o'clock in the afternoons, the whole town can hear the yelling and screaming coming from the schoolyard. This is our doctor's house, Doc Gibbs. And, well, this is the back door. And this is scenery for those who feel like you have to have scenery. And over here is Mrs. Gibbs' garden. Corn, beans, peas, hollyhock, heliotrope, and lots of burdock too. Now in those days, local paper came out twice a week, Grover's Corners Sentinel. And that's Editor Webb's house. And over here, Mrs. Webb's garden. Just like Mrs. Gibbs. Only she's got a lot of sunflower too. And right here, big old beautiful butternut tree. It's a nice town, you know what I mean? Nobody very remarkable ever come from here, not so far as we know anyway. And up there in the mountain, there's a cemetery, and the oldest tombstones read 1670, 1680, and they're full of Grovers and Cartwrights, Gibbs and Herseys, same names we have here now. Well, like I said, it's just before dawn. The only lights on in town are at a cottage across the tracks. A Polish mother's just given birth to twins. Oh, Joe Crowell's house over here. Joe Jr. gotten up early so he can go deliver the paper. And of course, there's Shorty Hawkins out at the railway station. He's waiting for the 5:45 for Boston to go by. Naturally, out in the country all around. Light's been on for some time. What with milkings and feedings and so on. But right here in town, well, they just sleep late. So our day has begun. Doc Gibbs coming down the street there. He's coming back from that baby case I told you about. And Mrs. Gibbs coming down to make breakfast. Now, Doc Gibbs died in 1930, and they named the new hospital after him. Mrs. Gibbs died first. In fact, she died a long time ago. She went out to visit her daughter Rebecca, who'd married an insurance salesman in Canton, Ohio, and died. Pneumonia. But they brought her body back here and buried her up there on the mountain, along with a whole mess of Gibbses and Herseys. You see, she was a Gibbs before a Hersey before she married Doc Gibbs over in a Congregational church. Julia Hersey, that's it, Julia Hersey. You see, in our town, we like to know the facts about everybody. Now, Mrs. Webb's coming down to make her breakfast, too. And there's Doc Gibbs. Got that call 1:30 this morning. And here comes Joe Crowell Jr. delivering Mr. Webb's newspaper.
Morning, Doc.
Morning, Joe.
Has somebody been sick?
Just a pair of twins born over in Polish Town.
You want your paper now?
Yes, I'll take it. Anything serious happening in the world since Wednesday?
Yes, sir. My teacher, Miss Foster's getting married to a fellow over in Concord.
Really? What do you boys think about that?
Well, it's none of my business, but I think if somebody starts out to be a teacher, they'll stay one.
How's your knee?
It's fine, Doc. Like you said, it tells me it's going to rain.
What's it telling you today, Joe? Is it going to rain?
No, sir.
Sure?
Yes, sir.
Knee ever make a mistake?
No, sir.
I want to tell you a little bit about that boy Joe Crowell there. Awful bright lad he was. He graduated first in his high school here. Got a scholarship to Massachusetts Tech. Graduated first in the class there as well. It's all wrote up in the Boston paper at the time. He's going to be a great engineer, Joe was. The war broke out. He died in France. All that education for nothing.
Giddy up, Bessie. What is the matter with you today?
And that's Howie Newsom. He delivers the milk.
Morning, Dr. Gibbs.
Morning, Howie.
Somebody sick?
No, just some twins over at Mrs. Gorislowski's.
Twins, this town's getting bigger every year.
Going to rain today, Howie?
No, fine day. This'll clear through.
Hello, Bessie. How old is she, Howie?
Bessie is going on 17 years old. She's all mixed up ever since the Lockharts stopped taking their quart of milk every day. Wants leaving one just the same and keeps scolding me the whole trip.
Oh, good morning, Howie. Seems like you're late today.
Yes, something went wrong with the separator. Don't know what was. Doc's just coming down the street.
Oh, is he?
Doc?
Howie?
Children, time to get up. George, Rebecca.
Come on, Bessie.
Oh, everything all right, Frank?
Yes, I declare. Easy as kittens.
Oh, well, sit down and drink your coffee. The bacon will be ready in a minute. I reckon you can catch a few hours sleep this morning, can't you?
Mrs. Wentworth's coming at 11. Guess I know what that's all about. Her stomach ain't what it used to be.
Oh, all told, Frank Gibbs, you won't get more than 3 hours sleep. I don't know what I'm going to do with you. I do wish I could get you to go away someplace and take a real rest.
Children! Emily, time to get up! Wally, 7 o'clock!
Oh, I declare, you've got to speak to George. Seems like he's no help to me at all lately. I can't even get him to chop me some wood.
Is he sassy to you?
No, he just whines. All he thinks about is that baseball. George, Rebecca, you'll be late for school. George!
George, look sharp.
Yes, Pop.
Wally! Emily, it's time to get up. Now, Wally, you wash yourself up good, or I'll come up there and I'll do it myself.
Listen to what your mother's saying. I'm going to go up and catch 40 winks.
Mom, what dress shall I wear?
Oh, don't make a sound. Your father's been out all night and he needs his rest. I washed and ironed the blue gingham for you special.
Oh, Ma, I hate that dress.
Now, Rebecca, you always look very nice.
Every day I go to school just like a sick turkey.
Oh, hush up with you.
Mama, George is throwing soap at me.
Oh, I'll come up and slap the both of you. That's what I'll do.
There's a factory in town, did you hear that? Makes blankets. Cartwrights bought it and brung him a fortune.
Children, I won't have it. Breakfast is just as good as any other meal, and I will not have you gobbling it like wolves. It'll stunt your growth, that's a fact. Wally, put away your book.
Mom, by 10 o'clock I've got to know all about Canada.
Well, you know the rules as well as I do. No books at the table. As for me, I'd rather have my children healthy than bright.
I'm both, Mama. You know that I am. I'm the brightest girl in school for my age. I have a wonderful memory.
Eat your breakfast.
I'm bright too, when I'm looking at my stamp collection.
Well, I will speak to your father about it, but it seems to me that 25 cents is enough for a boy your age each week. I declare I don't know what you find to spend it on.
Ma, I got a lot of things to buy.
Oh, strawberry phosphates, that's what you spend it on.
Well, I don't see how Rebecca comes to have so much money. Now, she has more than $1.
I've been saving it up gradual.
Well, dear, I think it's okay to spend a little every now and then.
Mama, do I love most in the world? Do you? Money.
Eat your breakfast.
Oh, Mama, there's the first bell.
Oh.
I gotta hurry.
Gotta hurry.
Now walk fast, but you don't have to run. Wally, pull your pants up at the knee. Emily, stand up straight.
Oh, tell Miss Foster I send my best congratulations. Can you remember that?
Yes, Mom.
Oh, you look real nice, Rebecca. Now pick up your feet.
Bye.
Oh, here, chick, 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 chick. Here, chick, chick, chick. You don't belong to me. Where'd you come from? Here, chick, chick. Go away, you. No one's gonna hurt you here. Oh, Myrtle, good morning. How's your cold?
Oh, I've still got that tickling in my throat. I told Charles I may not make it to choir practice tonight. I wouldn't be any use.
Well, have you tried singing over your voice?
Well, I tried that, but I can't seem to do that and stay on key. While I'm resting myself, I thought I'd string some of these beans for the winter.
Well, here, let me help. Beans have been real good this year.
Oh, they have. I've decided I'm going to put up 40 quarts if it kills me. The children say that they can't stand them, but I notice they're able to get them down all winter.
Now, Myrtle Webb, I've got to tell you something, because if I don't tell someone, I'll burst.
What, Julia Gibbs?
Oh, Myrtle, did one of those secondhand furniture men from Boston call on you last Friday?
No.
Well, he called on me. At first, I thought he was a patient wanting to see Doc Gibbs, and he wormed his way into my parlor, and Myrtle Webb, he offered me $350 for Grandmother Wentworth's highboy as I'm sitting here.
What, Julia Gibbs?
He did, that old thing. Why, it was so big, I didn't know what to do with it, and I almost give it to Cousin Hester Wilcox.
Well, you're going to take it, aren't you?
Oh, I don't know.
You don't know? What's come over you, $350?
Well, if I could get the doctor to take the money and go away on a real trip, well, I'd sell it like that. You know, Myrtle, it's always been the dream of my life to see Paris, France. I know it sounds crazy, I suppose, but for years I've been promising myself that if I ever had the chance.
Well, what does the doctor think about it?
Oh, I did beat around the bush a little bit and said if I got a legacy, that's the way I put it, that I'd make him take me somewhere.
What did he say?
Oh, you know how he is. I haven't had a serious word out of him since I've known him. No, he said it might make him discontented with Grover's Corners to go traipsing about Europe. Better let well enough alone, he says. Every 2 years he takes a trip to the battlefields of the Civil War, and that's enough treat for anyone, he says.
Well, Dr. Webb just admires the way Dr. Gibbs knows everything about the Civil War. Well, Mr. Webb has him on to give up Napoleon and move on over to the Civil War. But Dr. Gibbs, being one of the greatest experts in the country, just makes him despair.
Oh, it is a fact. Dr. Gibbs is never so happy as when he's at Antietam or Gettysburg. The times I've walked those hills, Myrtle, pacing it out and stopping at every bush like we were going to buy the place.
Well, Julia, if that second-hand man's serious about selling it, or buying it, you sell it. That way you'll get to see Paris, France. Just keep dropping hints from time to time. That's how I got to see the Atlantic Ocean, you know.
It's true. Oh, it sounds crazy, I suppose, but it just seems that once in your life, before you die, you ought to visit a country where they don't talk in English and don't even want to.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. I'm going to give you a little more information here about the town and sort of a scientific account, if you will. And to that end, I've asked Professor Willard of State University if she would come by and fill us in on some of the details in this area. Professor Willard, are you here? Professor Willard of State University. Welcome, Professor. Thank you very much for coming. And a few words, if you will, but I'm afraid our time is limited.
Grover's Corners. Let me see. Grover's Corners lies on the old Pleistocene granite of the Appalachian Range. I must say it's some of the oldest land in the world. We're very proud of that. A shelf of Devonian basalt crosses it with vestiges of Mesozoic shale and some sandstone outcroppings. But that's all much more recent. 200, 300 million years old. Some highly unusual fossils have been found. May I say unique fossils? 2 miles out of town in Silas Peckham's cow pasture. They can be seen at the museum of our university at any time. At any reasonable time, that is. Would you like me to read some of Professor Gruber's notes on the meteorological conditions?
No, that's all right. Professor, I'm afraid we're pushed for time. So perhaps some facts about history of man here.
Anthropological data. Early Amerindian stock, Cotacachi tribes. No evidence before the 10th century in this era. Now entirely disappeared. But possible traces in 3 families. Later migration in the second half of the 17th century of English, brachiocephalic blue-eyed stock, for the most part. Later, some Slav and Mediterranean.
The population, Professor, perhaps?
Within the city limits, 2,640.
Professor.
Oh, yes, indeed. The population at the moment is 2,642. Birth and mortality rates are constant by McPherson's gauge, 6.012.
Thank you, Professor. We certainly are obliged to have had you here. Thank you very much.
Yes, indeed, sir. No problem.
Right that way, Professor. And thank you again. Now, for the political and social report, Editor Webb. Mr. Webb. Oh, Mr. Webb.
He'll be out in just a minute. He just cut his hand while he was eating an apple.
Thank you, Mrs. Webb.
Charles, everybody's waiting.
Mr. Webb is the publisher and editor of the Grover's Corner Sentinel. That's our local paper, you know. Mr. Webb, welcome.
Thank you. Well, I don't need to tell you that we're run here by a board of selectmen. Adult males vote at age 21. Women vote indirect. That means nagging. We're lower middle class, a sprinkling of professional men, and about 10% illiterate laborers. Politically, we're 86% Republican, 6% Democrat, 4% Socialist, the rest indifferent. Religiously, we're 85% Protestant, 12% Catholic, and the rest indifferent.
Well, do you have any comments to make, Mr. Webb?
Well, a very ordinary small town, I'd say. A little better behaved than most, and probably a bit duller. But our young people seem to take to it just fine. Over 90% of them, after graduating from high school, come back and settle down right here. Even the ones who have been away to college.
Well, now, does anyone in the audience have a question for Mr. Webb?
Is there much drinking in Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, I suppose that depends on what you mean by the word much. Friday nights, the farmhands gather down at Ellery Greeno's stable, and they hoot and holler. We've always had one or two town drunks, but they do seem to get remorseful whenever an evangelist comes to town. So no, I think liquor ain't a big part of the households here, except maybe in the medicine cabinet. Always was good for snake bite.
Is there no one in town
I'm sorry, I can't quite hear you. Could you speak up, please?
Is there no one in town aware of social injustice and industrial inequalities?
Well, practically everybody. It seems like the most common sport is trying to figure out who's rich and who's poor.
Then why don't they do something about it?
Well, I don't know. We'd all like to find a way for the diligent and sensible to rise to the top and the lazy and quarrelsome to sink to the bottom. But it ain't easy. Meanwhile, we try to help those that can't help themselves, and the others that can, we leave them to it. Are there any more questions?
Oh, Mr. Webb, is there any culture or love of beauty in Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, probably not the culture that you're referring to. We have, it's hard to say. We have pleasures of our own kind. That's what I'm trying to get to. Things like the sun coming up over the mountain, and the birds. We watch the birds, pay a lot of attention to the birds, and the change of seasons. That's always big. But no, the culture you're talking about, it's limited maybe to Robinson Crusoe and the Bible, Handel's Largo, and Whistler's Mother. We all know that. But that's about as far as we go.
So I thought. Thank you, Mr. Webb.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Webb. Now we are going to go back to town and move ahead just a couple hours. It's early afternoon. All 2,642 have had their dinner. Dishes have been washed. There's a quiet calm that's come over the town. It's a bit of a humming and buzzing out at the schoolyards, of course. Horses are hitched up to the hitching post and they're dozing there. Well, you remember what that's like. Doc Gibbs is in his office. He's tapping on people, making them go, ah. And Mr. Webb here is mowing his lawn. Did you know that 1 in 10 men thinks it's a privilege to push his own lawnmower? It's later than I thought, and the kids are coming back from school already.
All right, goodbye. Oh, I can't, Lois. I gotta go home and help my mother. I promise.
Emily, walk simply. Who do you think you are?
Oh, Papa, you're terrible. One minute you tell me to stand up straight, and the next you're calling me names. I just don't listen to you.
Golly, I just got kissed by a great lady.
Excuse me, Mrs. Forrester. Hello, Emily.
Hello.
You made a fine speech in class.
Well, I was really ready to make a speech about the Monroe Doctrine, but at last minute, Miss Corcoran made me talk about the Louisiana Purchase instead. I worked an awfully long time on both of them.
Gee, it's funny, Emily. From my window up there, I can just see your head. That's when you're doing your homework over in your room.
Why can you?
You certainly do stick to it, Emily. I don't see how someone could sit still that long.
I just suppose it's something that everyone has to go through.
Yeah.
But I don't mind it. It passes the time.
Yeah. Hey, what do you think? We might work out a kind of telegraph system from your window to mine, and once in a while maybe you could give me a kind of, hint or two about one of those algebra problems. Yeah, I don't mean the answers, Emily. Of course not. Just some little hint.
Well, I think hints are allowed, so, George, if you get stuck, you whistle to me, and I'll give you some hints.
Emily, you're just naturally bright, I guess.
I just figure it's the way a person's born.
Yeah, but you see, I want to be a farmer, and my Uncle Luke says that whenever I'm ready, I can just come over and work on his farm, and that if I'm any good, I can just gradually have it.
You mean the house and everything?
Yeah. Well, I'd better be getting out to the baseball field. Thank you for the talk, Emily. Good afternoon, Mrs. Webb.
Good afternoon, George.
So long, Emily.
So long, George.
Emily, get up here and help me snap these beans for the winter.
Yes, Mom.
George Gibbs let himself have a real conversation, didn't he? Well, he's growing up. How old would George be now?
Oh, I don't know.
Let me see. Well, he must be almost 16.
I made a speech in class today, and I was very good.
Well, you must recite it to your father at supper. What was it about?
The Louisiana Purchase. It was like silk off a spool. I'm going to make speeches all my life. Are these big enough?
Try to get them a little bigger if you can.
Mama, can I ask you a question? Serious?
Seriously, dear, not serious.
Seriously, will you?
Of course.
Mama, am I good looking?
Well, of course you are. All of my children got good features. I'd be ashamed if they hadn't.
Oh, Mama, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, am I pretty?
I already told you yes. Now that's enough of that. You have a nice, young, pretty face. That's enough of that foolishness.
Oh, Mama, you never tell us the truth about anything.
I am telling you the truth.
Mama, were you pretty?
Why, yes, I was, if I do say it. I was the prettiest girl in town next to Mamie Cartwright.
Well, Mama, you have to say something about me. Am I pretty enough to get anybody? To get people interested in me?
Emily, you make me tired. Now stop it. You are pretty enough for all normal purposes. Now come along. Bring that bowl with you.
Oh, Mama, you're no help at all.
Thank you. I'm afraid you're going to have to interrupt here. Thank you, Miss Webb. Thank you, Emily. I think now is a good time to tell you that the Cartwright interests here have decided to build a new bank in Grover's Corners. Now, sorry to say they had to go to Vermont to get the marble. But they asked a friend of mine what he thought they should put in a cornerstone so that people 1,000 years from now dig it up and find it. Well, naturally, they put in a copy of the New York Times, and they put in a copy of Mr. Webb's Sentinel. Now, we have a local interest in that because you see there's some scientific fellas who came up with a way to paint those pages with a sort of glue, a silicate glue that would make them last for 1,000 to 2,000 years. Naturally, they put a copy of the Bible in there, the Constitution of the United States, and a copy of Shakespeare's plays. So, what do you say? What do you think? Now, Babylon once had over 2 million people, and all we remember about them is the name of some of their kings and some of the copies of wheat contracts, contracts for the sale of slaves. But every evening, families would sit down at the dinner table and have dinner. Fathers would come home from work and the smoke would go up the chimneys, same as here. Even with the Greeks and the Romans, all we really know about them is what we get from reading their joking poems or their comedies that they wrote for their theater back then. So, I'm going to put a copy of this play in that cornerstone so that people 1,000 years from now will know a few simple facts about us here. More than the Treaty of Versailles or Lindbergh's flight. You see what I mean? So, people 1,000 years from now, this is what we were like in the provinces north of New York at the turn of the 20th century. This is what we were like in our growing up, in our marrying, in our living, and in our dying. It's evening now. The Congregational Church choir is beginning to practice. Children are doing their schoolwork. The day is winding down like a tired clock.
Now look here, everybody. Music come down to earth to give pleasure.
Can you come down a minute?
Yes, Pa.
Have a seat, George. I'll just keep you a minute. George, how old are you?
I am 16, almost 17.
And what do you want to do when school's over?
Well, you know I want to be a farmer on Uncle Luke's farm.
You'll be willing then, will you, to get up early and to feed the stock and hoe and hay all day?
Well, sure I will. What are What do you mean, Pa?
Well, George, I was in my office today, and I heard a funny sound. And you know what it was? It was your mother, chopping wood. And there's your mother, getting up early every day, cooking and cleaning, ironing and pressing your clothes, and she still has to go out and chop wood. I guess she just gave up asking. It was easier to go do it herself. And there you are, eating her meals and wearing the nice clothes that she makes for you. And then you go out and play baseball, like she's some hired girl that we keep around, but we don't really like. There. I knew I just had to call your attention to it, son. Here. Have a handkerchief. George, I've decided to raise your spending money 25 cents a week. Not for chopping wood, because that's a present you give to your mother. But you're getting older, and I imagine there are things that you need it for.
Thanks, Pa.
Rebecca will probably be wanting some more, too. Wonder where your mother is. Choir practice has never gone this long before.
It's only 8:30, Pa.
I don't know why she's in that old choir. She's got a voice like an old crow, traipsing about all hours of the night. Just about time for you to retire, son.
Yes, Pa.
Good night, Martha. Good night, Mr. Foster.
Good night. Oh, I'll be sure and tell Mr. Webb. I just know he'll want to put it in the paper.
My, it's late.
Good night, Irma.
Oh, look at that moon, Myrtle Webb. Potato weather, for sure.
Now, naturally, I didn't want to say anything in front of those others, but now that we're alone, really, it is the biggest scandal this town ever saw.
What?
Simon Stimson.
Oh, now, Luella.
But Julia, to have the organist of the church drink and drunk year after year, you know he was drunk tonight.
Oh, now, Luella. We all know about Mr. Stimson, and we know about the troubles he's been through. And Dr. Ferguson knows too. And if Dr. Ferguson chooses to keep him on in his job here, well, the only thing the rest of us can do is not to notice it.
Not to notice it, but it's getting worse.
Oh, Luella, it is not. It's getting better. I've been in this choir twice as long as you have, and it doesn't happen anywhere near so often. My, I hate to go to bed on a night like this. I must hurry, though. Those children will be sitting up till all hours. Good night, Luella.
All right. Oh, can you get home safe, Luella?
Why, yes, it's as bright as day out. You can see Mr. Soames scowling in the window right now. You'd think we'd been to a dance the way the men folk carry on.
Oh, good night, Luella. Good night. Oh, well, we had a real nice choir practice.
You're late enough.
Oh, Frank, it any later than usual.
And you stopping on the corner to gossip with a bunch of hens?
Oh, don't be grouchy, Frank. Come out in the moonlight and smell the heliotrope. Oh, isn't that wonderful? What'd you do all the time I was away?
Oh, I read as usual. What were you girls gossiping about?
Oh, well, believe me, Frank, there is something to gossip about.
Simon Stimson's far gone, was he?
Oh, the worst I've ever seen him. How'd that end, Frank? Dr. Ferguson can't forgive him forever.
Well, I guess I know more about Simon Stimson's affairs than anyone else in this town. Some people ain't made for small town life. I don't know how that's going to turn out, but there's nothing we can do about it. Come on, let's get in.
No, wait, Frank. I'm worried about you.
Now, what are you worried about?
Oh, Frank, I think it's my duty to see that you get a real rest. And if I get that legacy, I'm going to insist on it.
Julia, now, there's no sense in going over that.
Oh, Frank, you're so unreasonable.
Oh, come on, let's get in. You're going to catch your death or cold. Oh, I gave George a piece of my mind. I reckon you'll be having your wood chopped, for a wall, at least. No, come on.
Oh, it seems like there's always so many things to pick up and put away. You know, Frank, Mrs. Fairchild locks her front door every night. All those people up that part of town do.
Those people are getting citified. That's the trouble with them. They haven't got nothing to gargle, but everybody knows it.
Get out, Rebecca. There's only room for one at this window. You're always spoiling everything.
Let me look just a minute.
Use your own window.
I did, but there's no moon there. George, do you? I think maybe the moon's getting nearer, and there'll be a big explosion.
Rebecca, you don't know anything. If the moon were getting nearer, the men that sit up all night with the telescopes would see it first, and they'd tell about it, and it'd be in all the newspapers.
George, is the moon shining on South America, Canada, and half the whole world?
Well, probably is.
9:30, Grover's Corners. Once the lights are out, Constable Warren checking the doors. Meanwhile, Edward Webb put this newspaper to bed and heading home.
Evening, Bill.
Well, evening, Mr. Webb.
What a moon.
Yeah.
Any trouble tonight?
Well, Simon Simpson's out rolling around. His wife, I saw her out moving out to hunt for him, so I skedaddled the other way. I think that's him right there, Mr. Webb.
Evening, Simon. Most of the town settled down pretty well for the night. Simon, I said most of the town settled down for the night. Shouldn't we do the same? Can I walk along with you? Good night.
I just don't know how that's going to turn out, Mr. Webb.
Well, he's had a pack of trouble. One thing after another. Say, Bill, if you see my boy smoking cigarettes, I'd like you to have a word with him. He respects you, Bill.
I don't think he smokes no cigarettes, Mr. Webb. Leastwise, not more than 2 or 3 a year.
Well, let's hope so. Good night.
Night, Mr. Webb.
Who's that up there? Is that you, Myrtle?
No, Papa, it's me.
Emily, why aren't you in bed?
Oh, I don't know. I just can't sleep. The moonlight's so wonderful. And the smell of Mrs. Gibbs' heliotropes. Can you smell them?
Yes. No troubles on your mind, are there, Emily?
Troubles, Papa? No.
All right. Well, enjoy yourself. Just don't let your mother catch you. Good night.
Good night, Papa. I never told you about that letter Jane Crowfoot got from her minister when she was sick. He wrote Jane a letter on the envelope. The address was like this. It said, Jane Crowfoot, the Crowfoot Farms, Grover's Corners, Sutton County, New Hampshire, the United States of America.
Well, what's funny about that?
But listen, it's not finished. The United States of America, continent of North America, the Western Hemisphere, the Earth, the solar system, the universe, the mind of God. That's what it said on the envelope.
Well, what do you know?
And the postman brought it just the same.
What do you know?
That's the end of the first act, folks. 10-minute intermission, and you can smoke for those who smoke. Well, 3 years have passed. Sun's come up over 1,000 times. Summers and winters have cracked the mountain just a little bit. Rains brought down some of the dirt. There are some babies who weren't even born yet who've begun speaking in regular sentences. And people who thought themselves quite young and spry can't quite bound up the steps like they used to, not without their hearts fluttering just a little bit. All that can happen in 1,000 days. Now, nature's been pushing and contriving in other ways, too. A lot of our young people have fallen in love. They got married. But that mountain has been bent back a few fractions of an inch. Millions of gallons of water have washed down to the mill, and here and there, new homes have been set up under a roof. You know, most everybody in the world gets married. You know what I mean? In our town, there's hardly any exceptions. Pretty much everybody climbs into their graves married. Now, the first act was called The Daily Life. This one's called Love and Marriage. And there's a third act coming, and I reckon you can guess what that's about. Well, like I said, it's 3 years later. 1904, July 7th, just after high school commencement. That's the time of year where our young folks like to jump up and get married. It seems like once they have concluded their final examinations in solid geometry, Cicero's orations, that sort of thing, they like to think of themselves as fit to be married. Well, it's early morning again. Only this time it's been raining. In fact, it's been pouring, been thundering. Mrs. Gibbs, Mrs. Webb's gardens are drenched. The bean poles, the pea vines are all drenched. Right down here on Main Street yesterday all day, the rain was being blown about like a curtain. And it looks like it could start again any time. And 5:45 for Boston ought to be coming by. Now, Mrs. Gibbs, Mrs. Webb are going to be coming down to make breakfast, just like it's any other ordinary day. But I don't have to tell you women in the audience that these two ladies, both of them before you, have been making 3 meals a day. One for 20 years, one for 40 years. No vacation. Now, they've each raised 2 children each. They've washed, they've cleaned the house, and never, ever a nervous breakdown. It's like what one Middle West poet once said, you got to love life to have life, and you got to have a life to love life. It's what they call a vicious circle.
Giddy up, Bessie.
And there's Harry Newsom delivering the milk, and Cy Crowell's delivering Mr. Webb's newspaper like his brother Joe before him.
Well, morning, Howard.
Morning, Cy. Anything in those papers I ought to know?
Nothing much, except for losing the best baseball player Grover's Corners has ever seen, George Gibbs.
Reckon he is.
He can hit and run bases, too.
Mighty fine ball player. Whoa, Bessie. I can stop and talk if I have a mind to.
I just don't see I could give up a thing like that just to get married. Would you?
I don't know, Si. I never had much talent that way. You're up early, Bill.
Well, I've been trying to do what I can to stop the flooding around here. You know, the river's been rising all night long.
Well, Cy Crowell over here is all worked up about George Gibbs is retiring from baseball.
Well, that's just the way it is, Si. You know, there was a great ball player back in '84. Name was Hank Todd, and he put George Gibbs to shame. He went down to Maine, became a parson, though. Great ball player. Well, what are you going to think about the weather?
That ain't bad. Think it may clear up for good. Good morning, Mrs. Gibbs.
Oh, good morning, Howard. You think it's going to rain again?
I think it rained hard enough last night that it'll hold off for today.
Oh, I certainly hope so.
How much did you want?
Well, I'm going to have a house full of relations, Howie. I think I'll need 3 of milk and 2 of cream.
Well, my wife says to tell you as to how we both hope to be very happy, Mrs. Gibbs. No, they will.
Oh, thank you, Howie. And tell your wife we hope she gets there to the wedding.
Oh, yeah, she'll be there. She'll be there if she can. Morning, Mrs. Webb.
Good morning, Mr. Newsom. I had told you 4 quarts of milk, but I hope you can spare me another.
Yes, and the 2 of cream.
Is it going to rain again, Mr. Newsom?
Well, I was just telling Mrs. Gibbs as to how it may let up. Mrs. Newsom told me to tell you as to how we both hope to be very happy, Mrs. Webb. No, they will.
Well, thank you, and thank Mrs. Newsom for me, and we're counting on seeing you both at the wedding.
Oh, yeah, we couldn't miss that. Come on, Bessie.
Well, Ma, the day has come. One of your chicks is leaving.
Oh, Frank Gibbs, don't you start that. Here, sit down and drink your coffee.
Groom's upstairs shaving himself, although there's not a lot to shave. Whistling and singing like he's happy to leave us.
Oh,
He's been saying I do to that mirror, but it doesn't sound convincing to me.
I declare, Frank, I just don't know how they'll get along. I've laid out his clothes and seen to it that he puts warm things on. Oh, Emily won't think of such things. He'll catch his death of cold within a week. Oh, they're just too young, Frank.
I was remembering my wedding morning, Julia.
Oh, don't you start that.
I was the scaredest fella in the state of New Hampshire. But then I saw you coming down that aisle, and I thought, there's the prettiest girl I've ever seen. But the trouble was, I'd never seen you before. There I was in the Congregational Church marrying a total stranger.
Oh, and how do you think I felt, Frank? Weddings are perfectly awful things. Farces is what they are. Here, I made you something.
Why, Julia Hersey, French toast.
Oh, well, it ain't hard, and I had to do something.
How'd you sleep last night, Julia?
Oh, I heard a lot of the hours struck off.
Yes, I get a shock every time I think of George becoming a family man. That great gangling thing. I tell you, Julia, there's nothing more terrifying than a son. The relation between father and the son is the darndest, awkwardest thing.
Well, mother and daughter is no picnic, let me tell you.
Well, they'll have troubles, but they're entitled to their own troubles. That's what they'll do.
Well, people are meant to go through life two by two. It ain't natural to be lonesome.
Julia, you know what I was scared of when we got married?
Oh, go along with you.
I was afraid that we'd run out of things to say. That in a couple of weeks we'd just be sitting there eating in silence. That's what it was. But you and I have been conversing for 20 years now with barely a barren spell.
Well, good weather, bad weather, it ain't very choice, but I always find something to say. Oh, have you heard Rebecca stirring around upstairs?
No. Only day of the year Rebecca hasn't been managing everybody's business up there. She's in her room. I got the impression she was crying.
Lord sakes, this has got to stop. Rebecca, come and eat your breakfast.
Good morning, everybody. Only 5 more hours to live.
Oh, George Gibbs, where are you off to?
I'm just stepping across the grass to see my girl.
Not without you put some overshoes on. It's raining torrents out there.
Ma, it's just a step.
Oh, you'll catch your death of cold and cough all through the service.
George, do as your mother tells you.
From tomorrow on, you can kill yourself in all weathers, but when you live in my house, you'll live wisely, thank you. Maybe Mrs. Webb isn't used to callers at 7 in the morning. Here, take a cup of coffee first.
Now, I'll be back in a minute. Morning, Mother Webb.
George, you frighten me. And you can come in for a minute out of the wet, but you know I can't ask you in.
Oh, why not?
Well, you know as well as I do, the groom can't lay eyes on his bride the day of the wedding. Not before he sees her in the church.
That's just a superstition. Oh, morning, Mr. Webb.
Morning, George.
Mr. Webb, you don't believe in superstitions, do you?
Well, George, there's a lot of wisdom in some superstitions.
Just, how is Emily?
Well, she's still asleep. She hasn't waked up yet. I haven't heard a sound out of her.
Emily's asleep.
Well, no wonder. We were up all night sewing and packing. I'll tell you what I'll do, George. You come over here, sit down with Mr. Webb, and have this cup of coffee. There's some bacon there too, but don't be long about it. I'll go up and make sure that she doesn't come down and surprise you.
Well, George, how are you?
I'm fine. Mr. Webb, what sense could there be in a superstition like that?
Well, George, a girl on her morning is apt to be preoccupied with clothes and things. Don't you think that's it?
Yes, I mean, I never really thought about it.
A woman on her wedding day, George, is apt to be preoccupied.
I wish a fella could just get married without all this marching up and down and...
George, every man that's ever been married has felt the same way. And it's no use. It's the women that are in charge of weddings, George. All those good women standing shoulder to shoulder, making sure that the knot is tied in a mighty public way.
But you believe in it.
Oh, yes. Don't misunderstand me, George. Yes, marriage is a wonderful thing. Wonderful thing. Don't you forget that.
No, Mr. Webb, how old were you when you got married?
Well, let me think. I went to college and a couple of years to get settled after that. Mrs. Webb wasn't much older than Emily is now. But it's not about age, George. It's about, it's about other things.
What were you going to say, Mr. Webb?
Oh, was I going to say something? Now, George, I was thinking last night about the advice my father gave me on my wedding day. He said, Charles, it's very important to make sure that she learns to obey. And he said, Charles, first thing to do is give her an order right away. Doesn't matter if it makes any sense or not, just so she'll learn. And then he said, Charles, if anything your wife does displeases you, why, just get up and walk out of the house and leave. And, one more thing, he said, Charles, he said, don't ever let your wife know how much money you have.
Mr. Webb, I don't think that I could...
George, I did the exact opposite of that advice, and I've been happy ever since. Now, George, you going to raise chickens on your farm?
What?
Are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
I mean...
Fella came in the office this week with a book about the philo system of raising chickens. I want you to read it. I'm thinking about starting out a little bit slow. A few chicks in the backyard and put an incubator in the basement.
Charles, are you talking about that old incubator again? I thought you two'd be talking about things worthwhile.
Well, Myrtle, if you have some great advice for George, I'll go upstairs and let you two have it.
Now, George, Emily has to come down and eat her breakfast. She sends her love, but she doesn't want to lay eyes on you. George. Goodbye, George.
Goodbye?
Myrtle, do you remember that older superstition?
And what's that, Charles?
Oh, it goes back to the cavemen. That no bridegroom should be allowed to see his father-in-law on the day of the wedding until they get to church. Don't forget that.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Webb. I'm going to interrupt you again. You see, we want to know how such things begin. Wedding, plan to live a lifetime together. I'm curious how such a big thing like that begins. You know how it is. You're 21, 22, all of a sudden, 70 years old. Been a lawyer for 50 years, and a white-haired woman sitting at your side shared over 50,000 meals with you. How do such things begin? Well, George and Emily are going to share a conversation they had when they knew that, as the saying goes, they were meant for each other. So, now they'll be coming, I want you to remember something first before they come down here, of course, is what it was like to be young, very young. And in fact, I want you to remember in particular when you were first in love. You were like a person sleepwalking. You didn't know what street you were on. You didn't quite hear what anybody said to you. You were just a little bit crazy. Would you remember that, please? Now, they'll be coming down from school about 3 o'clock, and George has just been elected president of the junior class. But seeing whereas this is June, that means he'll be president of the senior class all next year. And Emily, well, she was elected secretary and treasurer. And I don't have to tell you how important that is. You have to come down Main Street now.
Bye. Oh, Louise, I can't. I gotta go home. Oh, Ernestine! Can you come over tonight and do Latin? No, I can't. I'm sorry. Isn't that sister the worst thing? Yes, but my mom. Well, tell your mother you have to. I can't. I'm sorry. Oh, all right. Goodbye. Bye. Goodbye, Helen. Goodbye. Goodbye, friend.
Goodbye, Emily.
Can I carry your books for you, Emily?
Thank you. Is it far?
Oh, excuse me 1 minute. Now, stay long. If I'm late, go ahead and start practice anyway, and give her some long high ones.
All right, George.
Oh, goodbye, Lizzie.
Goodbye, Lizzie.
Bye.
I'm awfully glad that you were elected too, Emily.
Thank you.
Emily, why are you mad at me?
I'm not mad at you.
You've been treating me so funny lately.
Well, since you asked, I might as well say it right out. Oh, goodbye, Mrs. Corcoran.
Goodbye, Miss Corcoran.
Goodbye, children.
I don't like the whole change that's come over you in the last year. I'm sorry if this hurts your feelings, but I just gotta shame the devil and tell you the truth.
A change? What do you mean?
Well, up to a year ago, I used to like you a lot. And I used to watch you while you did everything. Because we've been friends for so long. Then you begin spending all your time in baseball. And you never stop to speak to anyone anymore. Not even to your own family. You don't. And it's a fact, George. You've got awfully conceited and stuck up. And all the girls say so. They may not say it to your face. They sure do say it behind your back. And I'm sorry that if this hurts your feelings, but I'm not sorry that I said it.
No, Emily, I'm glad that you said it. I never thought that such a thing was happening to me. I guess it's hard for a fellow not to have some faults creep into his character.
Well, I expect a man to be perfect, and I think he should be.
I don't think that it's possible to be perfect, Emily.
Well, my father is, and as far as I can tell, your father is. There's no reason on earth why you shouldn't be too.
Well, I feel that it's the other way around, that men aren't naturally good, but girls are.
Well, you might as well know right now that I'm not perfect. It's not as easy for a girl to be as perfect as a man, because we girls are more nervous. Now, I'm sorry I said all that about you. I don't know what made me say it.
Emily!
Now I can see it's not the truth at all. And it's not important anyway.
Emily, do you want an ice cream soda or something before you go home?
Thank you. I would.
Hello, George. Hello, Emily. What do you have? Why, Miss Emily Webb, what have you been crying about?
She just got an awful scare, Mr. Morgan. She almost got hit by that hardware store wagon. You know how everyone says that Tom Huckins drives like a crazy man?
Yeah. Well, here, let me, a fresh glass of water. You look all shook up there. Now, you've got to watch every time you walk across the street and look both ways. It's getting worse every time. Now, what do you have?
I'll have a strawberry phosphate. Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
No, Emily. Have an ice cream soda with me. 2 strawberry ice cream sodas, Mr. Morgan.
2 strawberry ice cream sodas, yes, sir. All right. Yes, sir. You know, there are over 125 horses here in Grover's Corner as I'm talking to you today. State inspector was here yesterday. And now they're bringing in those automobiles. Yeah, I think the best idea is just to stay home. Yes, I do. I remember the time when a dog could go out on Main Street there, lie down and take a nap all day and never be disturbed. All right, there you are. Enjoy. All right with you, Miss Ellis?
They're so expensive.
No, Emily. Don't think of that. We are celebrating our election. And then do you know what else I'm celebrating?
No.
I'm celebrating because I've got a friend who tells me all the things that ought to be told me.
Oh, George, please don't think of that. I don't know why I said it. I think that you're...
No, Emily. You stick to it. I'm glad that you spoke to me like you did, but you'll see. I'm going to change so quick, you bet I'm going to change. And Emily, can I ask you a favor?
What?
Emily, if I do go away to State Agriculture College, will you write me a letter once in a while?
I certainly will. I certainly will, George. It certainly seems that being away 3 years, you get out of touch with things. Maybe letters from Grover's Corners wouldn't be so interesting, especially when you think of all of New Hampshire. But I think it's a lovely town.
Now, the day wouldn't come when I wouldn't want to know everything that happens here. I know that's true, Emily.
Well, I'll try to make my letters interesting for you.
You know, Emily, whenever I meet a farmer, I ask them if they think it's important to go away to State Agriculture College to be a good farmer.
Why, George?
Yeah, and some of them say it's even a waste of time. You can get all that stuff anyway out of the pamphlets the government sends out. And Uncle Luke's getting old. He's about ready for me to start in taking over the farm tomorrow, if I could.
My.
Yeah, and, well, it's like you say. Being gone all that time, in new places, meeting new people, gosh. If anything like that could happen to me, then I don't want to go away. Emily, I feel as if you're as good of a friend as I've got. I don't need to go and meet the new people in other towns.
Well, George, maybe it's important for you to go and learn about cattle judging and soils and those kinds of stuff, but of course, I don't know.
No, Emily, I've made up my mind. I won't go. I'll tell Pa about it tonight.
But George, why do you have to decide right now? It's a whole year away.
Emily, I'm glad that you spoke to me about that fault in my character. And what you said, it was right. But there was one thing wrong in it. And that's when you said that for a year, I haven't been noticing people, and you, for instance. Why, you say you were watching me? Well, I was doing the same about you all the time. I always made sure where you were on the bleachers and who you were with. And for 3 days now, I've been trying to walk you home. But something's always gotten in the way. Well, just yesterday, I was waiting up against the wall for you. And you walked home with Miss Corcoran.
George, life's awful funny. How was I supposed to know that? I thought
now
that
listen, Emily. I'm going to tell you why I'm not going away to State Agriculture College. Now, I think that once you found somebody that you're really fond of, someone who's fond of you too and likes you enough to be interested in your character, well, that is every bit as important as college is. And even more so, that's what I think.
I think that's awfully important too.
Emily?
Yes, George?
Emily, if I do improve and make a big change, would you be, could you be?
I am now. And I always have been.
So then, I guess this is a pretty important talk we've been having.
Yes.
Now, wait just a minute and I'll walk you home. Mr. Morgan, I'll have to go home and get the money to pay for this. It will only take me a minute.
George Gibbs, are you trying to tell me...
Yes, but I had reason. Now, look, here's my gold watch to keep until I get...
No, George. You keep your watch. I trust you.
I'll be back in 5 minutes.
George Gibbs, I'll trust you 10 years and not a day over. Did you get over your shock there, Miss Emily?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
I'm ready.
Well, now let's get on with the wedding. There are lots of things to be said about a wedding, lots of thoughts that go on in a wedding. But we can't put all of those things in one wedding, particularly not a wedding here in Grover's Corners, because they tend to be awfully plain and short. Now, in this wedding, I play the minister. That gives me the right to say a few extra things about it. So I just want to let you know that for a while now, things are going to get pretty serious. You see, some churches say that marriage is a sacrament. I don't quite know what that means, but I can guess. Like what Miss Gibbs said a few minutes ago, people are made to live 2 by 2. Now, this is a good wedding. But people are so put together that even in a good wedding, they get confused way down deep in their brains. And I thought we ought to put that in the wedding display too. Now, the biggest heroes in this scene aren't even on the stage, and I'll bet you know who that is. It's like what some European fellow once said. Every child born into this world is nature's attempt to create a perfect human being. Well, nature's been pushing and contriving for some time, and we all know that nature's interested in quantity. I just happen to think she's interested in quality, too. That's why I became a minister. And let's not forget the other guests at the wedding. Our ancestors, millions of them, and they all set aside and set out to live 2 by 2 as well. Millions of them. Well, that's my sermon. It wasn't very long.
Suppose there's nothing to cry about. It came over me at breakfast this morning. There was Emily eating her breakfast that she has for 17 years, and now she's off to eat it in someone else's house. That's it, I suppose. And Emily, all of a sudden she said, "I can't eat another mouthful," and she put her head down on the table and she cried. I've got to say it. There's just something so downright cruel about sending our girls out into marriage this way. I only hope that her girlfriends have told her a thing or two. I know it's cruel, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. I went into it blind as a bat myself. The whole world's wrong. That's what's the matter. Here they
Hey, George! George! Look at him, fellas. He looks scared to death.
Oh, don't look so innocent, Georgie. We know what you're really thinking.
Don't expect tea, big boy.
All right, that's enough now. Run along. Run along. There used to be a lot more of that sort of thing back in history, Roman than before, but we're a lot more civilized now. So they say.
George? Well, George, what's the matter?
Ma, I don't want to grow old. Why is everybody pushing me so?
Oh, George, you wanted it.
No, listen, Ma. Ma.
But George, you're a man now.
No, Ma, for the last time I ask of you, all I want to do is be a fella.
Why, George? I'm ashamed. Now stop it. What if someone should hear you?
Wait, where's Emily?
Oh, George. Oh, George, you gave me such a turn.
Cheer up, Ma, I'm getting married.
Oh, let me catch my breath.
Now, Ma, you save Thursday nights. Now, me and Emily, we're coming over for dinner every Thursday night. Now, Ma, what's wrong? Why are you crying? Come on, we've got to get ready for this.
George, come here. Emily, you're marrying a fine fellow. George is the best fellow in the world.
But Papa!
George, I'm giving my daughter away. Will you take care of her?
Mr. Webb, I want to try. Emily, I'm going to do my best. I love you, Emily. I need you.
Well, if you love me, help me. All I want is somebody to love me.
I will, Emily. Emily, I'll try.
And I mean forever. Do you hear me, George? Forever and ever.
All right. Now you know it'll be okay. Come. They're waiting for us.
George, do you take this woman Emily to be your lawful wedded wife? Do you have?
Perfectly lovely wedding. It's the loveliest wedding I ever saw. Oh, I do love a good wedding, don't you? Doesn't she make a lovely bride?
I do.
And do you, Emily, take this man George to be your lawful
Oh,
wedding?
I don't know when I've seen such a lovely wedding. But I always cry. I don't know why it is, but I always cry. I just like to see young people happy, don't you? Oh, isn't it lovely?
I've married over 200 couples. Do I believe in it? I don't know. Him marries in millions of them. The cottage, Sunday afternoon drives in the Ford. The first, rheumatism, grandchildren. The second, rheumatism, the deathbed, the reading of the will. Once in 1,000 times, it's interesting. Now let's have Mendelssohn's Wedding March.
Aren't they a lovely couple? Oh, I've never been to such a nice wedding. I'm sure they'll be happy. I always say happiness. That's the great thing. The important thing is to be happy.
That's the end of the second act, folks. 10-minute intermission. Nine years have gone by, friends. Summer 1913. Gradual changes in Grover's Corners. Horses are getting rarer. Farmers coming to town in Fords. Now, most everybody locks the doors at night now. Ain't been any burglars in town, but everybody's heard about it. You'd be surprised, though, that for the most part, not many changes around here. This is an important part of Grover's Corners, this hilltop. It's a windy hilltop. Got lots of sky, lots of clouds, but often lots of sun, moon, and stars. Now, it's a beautiful place up here. You come up on a fine afternoon, and you can see range on range of hills. Awful blue they are, up there by Lake Sunapee and Lake Winnipesaukee. And if you have a glass, you can see it further still to the White Mountains and Mount Washington, where North Conway and Conway is. And then there's our favorite mountain, Mount Monadnock. And all the communities and towns surrounding it. You've got Jaffrey and East Jaffrey, Peterborough, Dublin. Right down there a ways is Grover's Corners. Beautiful place up here, full of mountain laurel and lilac. I often wonder why people would want to be buried in Woodlawn or Brooklyn when they could pass that same time up here in New Hampshire. Well, over here are the oldest stones, 1670, 1680. Strong-minded folk who come a long way to be independent. Now, summer folk walk around here and they make fun of some of the words on those old tombstones. Ain't no harm in that. Genealogists come up from Boston, paid by people to make sure they are daughters of the American Revolution or from the Mayflower, and I guess there ain't no harm in that either. Because wherever you go, you're going to find people and layers upon layers of nonsense. Right down here, some Civil War veterans. Iron flags on the graves. New Hampshire boys, they had a strange notion that the Union ought to be kept together. And all they had was the name, friends. United States of America. The United States of America. And they went out and they died about it. This is the newer part of the cemetery. I have our friend here, Mrs. Gibbs. And Mr. Stimson, Congregational Church. Mrs. Soames, she loved that wedding so well. You remember that. A whole lot of other people, too. Editor Webb's boy Wallace. You know, his appendix burst on a Boy Scout trip to Crawford Notch. A whole lot of grief and sorrow has been quieted down up here. People just wild with grief bring their relatives up to this hill. Well, you know what that's like. And then time. Sunny days, rainy days, snow. We're just glad they're up here somewhere beautiful. And we'll be up here too soon enough when our fit's over. Well, we all know some things. We just don't take them out and look at them very often. We all know that something is eternal. Now, it ain't names. It ain't houses. It's not the earth. It's not even the stars. But something deep in our bones is eternal. Now, that something is in human beings. Now, all the most famous people in our history have been telling us that for over 5,000 years, but people just fail to take hold of it. But there's something eternal in each human being. Now, you know as well as I do, the dead soon lose interest in the living. Gradually, they lose hold of the earth. Their ambitions, their pleasures, their sufferings, even their loved ones, they get weaned away from this earth. That's how I put it. Weaned away. And then, as they wait, the earth part of them burns out. It burns away. And they gradually grow indifferent to what's going on right here in Grover's Corners. They're waiting. They're waiting for something to come out. Something important. Something great. Aren't they waiting for that eternal part of themselves to come out clear? Well, some of the words I'm about to say here may hurt your feelings, but that's just the way it is. Mother and daughter, husband and wife, enemy and enemy, money and miser, all of those terribly important things grow pale right up here. And what will you do when your memory's gone? Your identity? There are some living people up here. Joe Stoddard, he's our undertaker, supervising a freshly dug grave. And there's a Grover's Corners boy coming back from having been out west.
Good afternoon, Joe Stoddard.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Let me see. Do I know you?
Sam Craig?
Gracious sakes alive. Of all people, I should have known you'd come to the funeral. You've been away a long time, Sam.
Yes, I've been away over 12 years now. I'm out in business in Buffalo, but I was in the East when I heard of my cousin's death. So I thought I'd combine things a little bit. Come and see the old home. You look well.
Yes. Can't complain. It's very sad, our journey today, Samuel.
Yes?
I always say I hate to supervise when a young person is taken. I came here a few hours early today. My son is supervising over at the home.
Old Farmer McCarty. I used to do chores for him after school. He had the lumbago.
He brought Farmer McCarty here a number of years ago now.
Why, this is my aunt, Julia. I'd forgotten that she'd... Of course.
Dr. Gibbs lost his wife 2-3 years ago now, and today's another pretty big blow for him.
That's my sister Carrie's boy, Sam Craig.
I'm always uncomfortable when they're around.
Simon.
Do they choose their own verses much, Joe?
No, not usual. Typically the bereaved pick a verse.
Doesn't sound like Aunt Julia. Aren't many of those Hersey sisters left now, are there?
No.
Let me see. I wanted to see my mothers and fathers.
Over with the Craigs, Avenue F, I believe.
He was organist at church, wasn't he? Drank a lot, we used to say.
Nobody was supposed to know. He'd seen a peck of trouble, and he took his own life, you know.
Oh, did he?
Hung himself in the attic. They tried to hush it up, but of course it got out. You can see his epitaph there. It ain't a verse exactly.
Why, well, it's just a few notes of music. What is it?
I wouldn't know. It was written up in the Boston papers at the time.
Joe, what did she die of?
Who?
My cousin, Emily.
Oh, well, didn't you hear? She had trouble bringing a baby into the world. 'Twas her second, though. There's another young one around 2-3 years old.
The grave's going to be over here?
Yes, we've run out of room in our current Gibbs section, so we're opening up a new one over by Avenue A. You'll excuse me now, I see they're coming.
Who is it, Julia? My daughter-in-law, Emily Webb.
I declare the road must have been awful muddy up here. What did she die of?
In childbirth.
Childbirth? I'd forgotten all about that. My, wasn't life awful and wonderful?
Wonderful, was it?
Simon, now remember.
I remember Emily's wedding. It was the loveliest wedding I ever saw. And I remember Emily reading the class poem at graduation exercises. You know, she was the brightest girl to ever graduate high school. Principal Wilkins used to say so time and time again. I called on them at their farm before I died. It was a perfectly beautiful farm.
It was on the same road we lived on.
Yes, right smart farm.
The tie that binds
I've always
our
liked this hymn.
hearts
I was
in
hoping they'd sing it now.
Christian love. The fellowship of kindred minds is like
Hello.
to that
Hello, Emily.
above.
Hello. Hello, Mother Gibbs.
Hello, Emily.
Hello, it's raining.
Yes, just rest yourself, dear. They'll be gone soon.
It feels thousands and thousands of years since... Papa remembered that was my favorite hymn. Oh, I wish I'd been here a long time. I don't like being new here. How do you do, Mr. Stimson?
How do you do, Emily?
Mother Gibbs? George and I made the farm into just the best place that you ever saw. We thought of you all the time. We wanted to show you the new barn and the great long cement drinking fountain that we got for the stock. Mother Gibbs, we bought it with the money that you left us.
I did?
Yes. Don't you remember? The legacy? Why, it was just over $350.
Yes. Yes, Emily.
Well, there's a patent device on the drinking fountain so that it never overflows and it never goes below a certain mark that it has there. It's fine. It won't be the same to George without me, though. But it's a lovely farm. 5 people don't understand, do they?
No, dear. Not very much.
They're sort of shut up in little boxes. It feels as though I last knew them 1,000 years ago. My boy's staying the day at Mrs. McCarty's. Mr. McCarty, my boy's staying the day at your house.
Is he?
Oh, yes. He just loves it there. Mother Gibbs, we have a Ford, too, and it never gives us any trouble. I don't drive, though. Mother Gibbs, when does this feeling go away? This feeling of being one of them. How long does it
Just rest yourself, dear. Be patient.
I know. Look. They're going. They're leaving. Oh, look. Father Gibbs is going to bring some of my flowers to you. Oh, he looks just like George, doesn't he? Oh, how I loved him so. I never realized how troubled and how in the dark life people are. From morning till night. That's all they are. Troubled.
Little cooler than it was.
Yes, Lorraine's cooling off a little. This northwest winds always do the same thing, don't they?
If it isn't rain, it's a 3-day blow.
Mother Gibbs, one can go back, can't they? Back into the living? I know it. I feel it. Why, just then for a moment, I was back at the farm and my boy was on my lap. It was as plain as day.
Yes, of course you can.
You mean one can go back and live there again? Well, why not?
All I can say is, Emily, don't.
But one can go back, can't they? To the living?
Yes, some have tried, but they all come back here.
Don't do it, Emily.
Oh, Emily, don't. It's not what you think it'd be.
But I'll choose a happy day anyway. I'll choose the first day that I knew I loved George. Why should that be painful?
Because you not only live it, you watch yourself living it.
Yes.
And as you watch, you see things that they down below don't. You see the future. You see things that will happen afterwards.
But that is painful? Why?
That's not the only reason you shouldn't do it, Emily. When you've been here longer, you'll see that our life here is to forget all of that and to think only of what's ahead and to be ready for what's ahead. When you've been here longer, you'll understand.
But it was my life. It's all I knew. It's all I had.
Emily, it's not wise. Really, it isn't.
But I'll choose a happy day anyway.
No. At least choose an unimportant day. Choose the least important day of your life. It would be important enough.
Well, then it can't be since I got married, or since the baby was born. I can choose a birthday, can't I? I choose my 12th birthday.
All right. February 11th, 1899, a Tuesday. Any particular time of day you want?
Oh, I want all day.
All right, we'll start at dawn. You'll remember it had been snowing for several days. They had just begun clearing the roads. The sun's coming up.
Oh my. There's Main Street. And there's Mr. Morgan's drugstore. And there's the livery stable.
Yes, it's 1899, 14 years ago.
Oh my. This is the white picket fence that used to be around my house when I was a little girl. Oh, how I love it so. Are they inside?
Yes, your mother will be coming down in just a moment to make breakfast. Your father's been away on a trip. He went back to his old college to make a speech, Schenectady, New York. He's coming back on the early morning train.
Oh, there's Howie Newsom. And there's our policeman. But he's dead. He died.
Whoa, Bessie. Morning, Bill.
Morning, Howie.
You're up early.
Yeah, I called out to rescue a party over there in Polish town. Some fella got drunk, fell in a snowdrift. I shook him, woke him up. He thought he was in bed.
Oh, and there's Joe Crowell.
Morning, Mr. Warren. Morning, Howie.
Children! Emily! Wally, you'll be late for school. It's time to get up.
Oh, Mama, I'm here. Oh, how young Mama looks. I didn't know she was ever that young.
Morning, Mr. Newsom.
Morning.
Oh, it's cold out.
10 below in my mark, Mrs. Webb.
Well, you think of it. Keep yourself wrapped up.
Will do.
Mama, I can't find my blue hair ribbon anywhere.
Just open your eyes and look, dear. I laid it out for you special on the dresser there. There's a snake and a bit ya.
Yes. Yes.
Morning, Doyle.
You're up awful early.
Yeah, just back from a visit to my old college in upstate New York. All quiet here?
Well, I did have to go over to Polish Town to rescue a fella in a snowdrift before he darn near froze to death.
We'll have to get that in the paper.
It wasn't much, Mr. Webb.
Take care.
Papa?
Morning, Mother.
How'd it go, Charles?
Pretty well. I told him a thing or two. How's things here?
Can't think of anything that's happened special. It's been right cold. Harry Newsom says it's been 10 below down to his barn.
It was colder than that at Union College. Students' ears were falling off. It ain't Christian. Any mistakes in the paper?
None that I noticed. Coffee's ready when you want some. Oh, Charles, don't forget today's Emily's birthday. Did you remember to get her something?
Got it right here. Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
Charles, don't interrupt her now. You can see her at breakfast. She is slow enough as is. Now, children, I don't want to have to call you again. Time for school.
I can't bear it. They're so young. I didn't know Mama and Papa were ever that young. Good morning.
Well, happy birthday to my girl and many happy returns. I've left some surprises for you over on the kitchen table.
Oh, Mama, you shouldn't have. I can't.
But birthday or no birthday, I want you to eat your breakfast good and slow. I want you to grow up and be a good, strong girl. Now that in the blue paper is from your Aunt Carrie. And I reckon you can guess who brought the postcard album by. George Gibbs must have come over pretty early in the cold this morning. Right nice of him.
Oh, George. I'd forgotten that. Mama? I'm really here. Please, let's just look at one another. Mama? 14 years have gone by. I'm dead, Mama. You're a grandmother, Mama. I married George Gibbs, Mama. Wally's dead, too. His appendix burst on a camping trip to North Conway. We felt just horrible about it. But, Mama, now that we're all together, now that we're happy, please just look at me.
That in the yellow paper is something I found in the attic among your grandmother's things. You're old enough to wear it now, and I thought you might like it.
And this was from you. Oh, it's lovely. It's just what I wanted, and it's beautiful.
I hunted all over for it. Your Aunt Nora couldn't find one in Concord, so I had to send all the way to Boston. Now, Wally has something for you, too. He made it special in manual training class. He's real proud of it, so make sure you make a big fuss about it. Your father has something for you, too. Not sure what it is myself. Shh, here he comes.
Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
I can't go on. Please, take me back. I didn't realize that all of this was happening, and we didn't even look at one another. Please take me back to my grave. But first, wait. Goodbye. Goodbye, world. Goodbye, Grover's Corner. Goodbye, Mama and Papa. Goodbye. The clock's ticking and Mama's sunflower. Goodbye to waking and sleeping and new iron dresses and hot baths. Goodbye, world. You're too wonderful for anybody to realize you. Does anybody realize life while they live it? Every minute?
No. The saints and the poets, maybe. They do some.
I'm ready.
Were you happy?
No. That's all they are. Just blind people.
Look, it's clearing off. The stars are coming out.
Oh, Mr. Stimson, I should have listened to them.
Yes, now you know. Now you know. That's what it was to be alive. To move around in a cloud of ignorance. To go up and down trampling on the feelings of those about you. To spend and waste every moment as if you had a million years. To always be at the mercy of one self-centered passion or another. Now you know. That's the happy existence you wanted to go back to. Ignorance and blindness.
Now, Simon Stimson, that ain't the whole truth, and you know it. Look at that star, Emily. I forget its name.
My boy Joel was a sailor. He knew them all. He would sit on porch in the evenings and tell them all by name. Yes, sir. Wonderful.
That's mighty good company.
Yes. Yes, it is.
There's one of them coming.
How funny. Take no time for one of them to be out here. Goodness sakes.
Mother Gibbs. It's George. It's George.
My boy Joel who knew the stars, he said it'd take 1,000,000 years for that speck of light to get to the earth. No one would believe him. 1,000,000 years.
Goodness, that ain't no way to.
He ought to be home.
Mother Gibbs.
Yes, Emily.
They don't understand, do they?
No, dear. They don't understand.
Most everybody's asleep in Grover's Corners. There are a few lights on. Shorty Hawkins at the depot, just watching the Albany train go by. And somebody sitting up late over there in the livery stable, sitting up late and talking. And yep, it's clearing up. All those stars doing their old crisscross journey in the sky. Scholars haven't decided for sure, but they seem to think that there's no living beings up there. Just chalk, the fire. Only this one's straining away. Straining away to make something important of itself. Straining away so hard that every 16 hours, everybody's got to lay down and get a rest. It's 11 o'clock in Grover's Corners. You go get a rest too. Good night.
Thank you.